Being poor does not just mean having less money. It means the exact same life, the same rent, the same groceries, the same car actually costs you more in real dollars. It costs more than it costs someone with a cushion. I've said this before and people act like it's a metaphor. It is not a metaphor, it's arithmetic. I want to walk you through where the extra $2,400 a year actually comes from. Fee by fee, dollar by dollar. Because once you see the mechanism, you can't unsee it. And look, I get the pushback before anyone says it. Nobody is forcing you to overdraft. Nobody is forcing you to buy the small bottle of detergent instead of the bulk one. Nobody is forcing you to walk into a payday lender. Personal choices matter, discipline matters, I'm not pretending they don't. But here's what that argument misses. A lot of these choices only exist because there's no buffer underneath you. If you've got $3,000 sitting in checking, you never see an overdraft fee in your life, your balance never goes negative. The fee isn't punishing bad decisions, it's punishing the absence of a float that people with money don't even have to think about. Their float handles it silently in the background every single day, without them ever noticing it's working. So let's actually name the mechanism, because this is where it gets expensive fast. Overdraft fees average around $35 per incident, and banks let multiple charges hit the same day, so one bad week can trigger 2 or 3 of them. That's $105 gone in 48 hours for being short by maybe $40. Miss a credit card payment, and you're looking at a late fee around $30 to $40. But the bigger hit is the penalty APR, which can jump your rate to close to 29%. And it can stay there for months even after you catch up, because most cards make you prove yourself first. 6 consecutive on-time payments before the rate resets. Payday loans are the worst of it. A typical loan charges roughly $15 per $100 borrowed over 2 weeks. That sounds almost reasonable until you annualize it, and it comes out to something like 400% APR. The mechanism there is brutal in a specific way. Most people can't repay the full amount in 2 weeks, so they roll it over. They pay another $15 per $100 just to push the due date out. And the loan that was supposed to cost $45 ends up costing $150 or more without the principal ever shrinking. Then there's the quieter tax nobody talks about, the small pack premium. A big container of laundry detergent costs less per ounce than the small one, sometimes 20 to 30% less. But if you don't have $20 free that week, you buy the small one, every time. And you pay more per unit for the rest of your life. None of this shows up on a paycheck stub. It shows up in the gap between when money leaves your account and when the next check lands. And if you don't have $300 or $400 of slack in that gap, you pay to survive until Friday. Now walk 2 versions of the same emergency with me, because side by side is where this clicks. Say your car needs a $600 repair you didn't plan for. Person 1 has savings, pays it, moves on, doesn't think about it again. Person 2 doesn't have it, so it goes on a credit card already carrying a balance at 24 to 29% interest. If they can only afford the minimum payment, that $600 repair quietly turns into $700 or $800. Stretched over 8 or 9 months. Now take rent. Person 1's rent check clears on the 1st because there's a buffer that never touches 0. Person 2's paycheck lands on the 3rd, so the rent payment overdraws the account. That's one $35 fee. And if a phone bill or a subscription tries to clear the same week, that's a second $35 fee on top of it. Let's do one more, because this is the one that gets people. Say you're a single parent and your kid gets sick. Nothing serious, just a $150 urgent care visit and a $40 prescription. Person 1 puts it on a debit card, checks the balance the next morning, done. Person 2 doesn't have $190 free that week, so it's either the payday loan at that 400% APR, or it skipped the electric bill. And that comes with its own $25 to $50 reconnection fee if it lapses long enough. Either path adds cost onto a bill that was never that large to begin with. stack 2 or 3 overdrafts a year, 1 late payment that triggers a penalty APR, 1 payday loan rollover, 1 utility fee from a missed month, and you're at $1,500 to $2,400 without a single irresponsible purchase anywhere in the picture. That's the number. It's not a moral failing, it's a structural tax on having zero room for error, charged automatically every time the timing doesn't line up. And this is the part that doesn't show up in any spreadsheet. What it actually does to you to live like this month after month. It's not just the money, it's the vigilance. You're checking your balance before you buy coffee. You're doing math in a grocery store line, not because you're bad with money. Being wrong by $12 means a $35 fee 3 days later. Every financial decision carries a penalty clause that richer people simply don't have attached to theirs. Someone with a buffer can be careless for a week and lose nothing. Someone without one has to be perfect every week or the system charges them for the mistake. And perfection isn't free either. It costs attention, it costs sleep, it costs the mental bandwidth you could spend on your job, on your kids, on anything that actually moves your life forward. There's nothing lazy or reckless about running out of that. Here's the part nobody says out loud. The fees aren't a byproduct of the business model. They're a huge chunk of it. Banks pull in something like $12 billion a year in overdraft fees alone. And that number has held steady for years, even as more banks advertise no overdraft fees as a selling point. That's not breakage. That's not an accident in the system. That's a revenue line somebody projects and budgets for every single quarter. The product isn't a checking account with an unfortunate side effect. For a meaningful slice of customers, the overdraft fee is the actual profit center. The checking account is just the delivery mechanism to get there. Same with payday lenders. If the average borrower repaid their loan in the original 2 weeks, most of these companies wouldn't survive on the interest alone. The rollover isn't a customer making a bad choice. The rollover is the forecasted outcome the interest rate was built around from the start. Nobody designs a 400% APR product expecting single-digit default and on-time repayment. They design it because the second and third fee is where the profit sits. The first loan is basically a loss leader to get you into the cycle. Now take someone who's unbanked entirely, because the math gets even worse here and almost nobody talks about it. No checking account means every paycheck gets cashed at a check cashing store. And those typically charge somewhere between 1% and 3% per check. That sounds small until you run it. On a $2,000 monthly paycheck, 2% is $40 a month, every month, just to access money you already earned. That's $480 a year, gone, before a single bill gets paid. Then bills get paid in cash or through a prepaid debit card. And prepaid cards routinely charge $1 to $5 for the same transactions a free checking account does automatically. Load fees, withdrawal fees, sometimes a monthly maintenance fee just to keep the card active. Stack the check cashing fee and the prepaid card fees and you're at $600 to $700 a year, spent purely on accessing and moving your own money. Money that a person with a regular bank account moves for free, instantly, without thinking about it once. Let's walk one more scenario, because this one shows how the mechanism compounds instead of just repeating. Say your washing machine breaks and a used one costs $300, which you don't have. Person 1 puts it on a credit card sitting near zero balance, pays it off in 1 or 2 statements. Total cost stays close to $300. Person 2 doesn't qualify for that card, so it's a rent-to-own store instead. $35 a month for 18 months comes out to $630 for the same $300 machine. More than double. And if a single payment is missed, some contracts let the store repossess it. You've paid hundreds of dollars for nothing at all. This is the part that matters. Rent-to-own exists specifically because it doesn't check credit. That sounds like access, but the price of that access is baked directly into the payment structure. It's not a loan with bad terms disguised as anything. It's priced from day one assuming you have no other option, because you don't. Now think about what this actually does to a person living inside it for years instead of one bad month. It's not just the dollar amount, it's the constant low hum of arithmetic running in the background of your entire life. You start doing math before you've had coffee. Can I get gas today, or does that push my account negative before the deposit clears Thursday? Is the kid's field trip fee due before or after rent? You're not making decisions anymore, you're running a triage. And the cruelest part is that this stress has a measurable cost too, even if it never shows up on a receipt. Decision fatigue is real, and when your brain is spending hours a week on account balance math, that's hours not spent on a job application, on your kids' homework, on sleep. People love to say poor people make worse long-term decisions, and sure, sometimes they do. But nobody mentions that the long-term thinking gets crowded out by mandatory short-term thinking every single day. Because the short term is where the $35 fee lives and the long term isn't going anywhere. So here's what I actually think should change on both ends, because I don't think this is hopeless. On the individual end, if you're anywhere near this situation, a $500 buffer sitting untouched in a separate account is the single highest return move available to you. Even a slow, ugly $20 a week bill to get there. Higher return than almost any investment because it's not earning interest, it's avoiding a guaranteed 29% penalty APR and a guaranteed $35 fee every time timing goes sideways. That's the math. Plain and simple. But I'm not going to pretend personal savings fixes a structural problem. Because it doesn't, not at scale. Overdraft fees should be capped the way some banks have already voluntarily done. Dropping fees to $0 or down to $5 or $10 instead of $35. Because that proves it's a choice, not a necessity of running a bank. Payday lending should be regulated the way a handful of states already regulate it, with real rate caps. Because 400% APR isn't a lending product, it's an extraction product wearing a lending product's paperwork. None of that is radical. It already exists in pockets. It just isn't universal, which means where you happen to bank and which state you happen to live in quietly decides how expensive it is to be broke. That's the whole thing in one sentence. The exact same $300 machine, the exact same $600 repair, the exact same paycheck costs more depending entirely on how much slack exists underneath you when it happens. And slack is not a personality trait, it's a number in an account.